Have you ever gotten an achievement in life that you thought would just make everything better? It would satisfy you. I remember when I graduated high school, I thought, okay, when I graduate high school, knowledge is just going to come into my brain. Well, it doesn't. You graduate and you're like, that's it. You turn in the cap and gown and you're like, okay, I guess I'm done. Or you graduate college, same thing. You go to your first job. You think money is just going to fly off the shelves at me. And it doesn't happen that way. Your expenses go higher. Or maybe you reach this milestone in life where you get that raise or you get that promotion or you get the bonus. And a lot of times we're living our lives for these things. We think once I reach this milestone, once I reach this thing, everything's going to get better. I heard a guy talk the other day about people who, they think if I could just get $1 million, once I get $1 million, everything's going to be better. But the funny thing is there's all these rich people and they're not really happy. And a lot of times we think this way is because we're seeking that outside approval. If I get this, if I show this to everybody, then it shows that I'm a good person. I'm valid. It's going to validate my life. It's going to validate me. And it doesn't really work like that. And all we end up doing is chasing shadows. We never catch them, but we're always chasing them. And we're going to talk about why that is on today's show. Hey guys, I'm David Maxwell from Thriving Man, where we help you conquer that everyday chaos and live a thriving life. Well, today we're talking about outside approval and how us chasing after that is really chasing after shadows. We're going after things we can't catch. And what happens is every time you move, the shadow moves. Every time you go to grab something, it's going to go away. You may reach new milestones, but it doesn't bring the happiness. And the reason is we're always looking for those outside things to satisfy something that's on the inside. And it doesn't work that way. And the reason is we're living for external validation. We want those things to validate us as a person. If I make more money, if I get the big house, if I get the raise, if I marry this kind of person, that validates me as a person. Well, that's pretty empty. And when we live for external validation, what that does is that puts us in a cycle of insecurity. And that insecurity hurts us and hurts our life. And let's talk about how. The first thing we want to talk about is the short-lived nature of external validation. It just doesn't last. When you're seeking that thing on the outside to approve you, you'll get it for a moment and you'll feel good for the moment, but it doesn't last. Like, let me ask you this question. Who won the 1951 Best Actor Oscar? Do you know? I didn't. I just picked that date out of the air. I had to look it up. And of course, I found out who it was. It was Humphrey Bogart in The African Queen. Great movie, great actor. But the truth is, nobody knows. Nobody cares. Why? It was 1951. It was a long time ago. You see, that outside validation was something that in 1951 for one night made Humphrey Bogart feel good, but now nobody cares. Probably 10 days later, nobody cared. And that's the reality of external validation. There's nothing wrong with getting those achievements, but they don't validate you in that they don't prove who you are as a person. You want to know that before you get those, or they can actually make you just have to keep working and working to try to prove yourself. Because when we live for those outside validations, what happens is we get caught up trying to get them over and over and over again. And sometimes we will use up all our energy. We'll destroy relationships. We'll destroy businesses, all because we're trying to get that outward validation. We see it today with viral videos. You have someone who blows up and they're everywhere. They're on TV, they're on commercials, they're this, that, the other, because they've gone viral for something. And then a week later, nobody knows who they are. Nobody knows what they're doing. And a lot of people, this has happened to them, and they kind of become super famous and then super not famous. And that's a hard place for them to be if they really need that, if they have to have it. We've seen that with shows like American Idol and The Voice. Someone will win and everybody's all excited for them, but then they just never really amount to anything. They may have one hit record or one record and never even have a hit because it's a hard world out there. And what happens is if that is the source of their validation, it's really fleeting. And you want to understand that about outside validations. There's nothing wrong with making it or getting the award or actually having achievements. Those are good, but those don't validate who you are as a human being. And if you live that way, where those have to validate you, it's going to hurt you more than anything else. The second thing we want to talk about is the power dynamic of dependency. And what does that mean? Well, what it means is for you, when you are living for that external validation, you're actually giving up your power to the outside source. You're becoming dependent upon them. You're becoming dependent on what they think, who they are, what they feel. So what you're doing is you're actually giving control of your life to someone else. So you don't control yourself anymore. You don't control what you think. They do. Because everything you're doing is to win their approval. And so you're giving your power up to them. And when you live for other people's opinions, when you live for their approval, you're actually becoming the servant and they're the master. You're not master of yourself. You're not controlling your choices. You're actually becoming the servant, and they actually have more power over you. We see this with people who become famous, and they start living for fame instead of living their own life. So they're always chasing more and more fame. They're chasing more and more highs of fame. And a lot of times what they're doing is they're giving up that control of themselves and they're giving that to others. And the problem with that is for us, it causes us a lot of times to be manipulated, to be controlled by other people. Other people can manipulate us and control us because they realize you're dependent upon them. And they can twist things and make you do things that maybe you don't want to do. We see this with people who fall for things like Ponzi schemes. And a Ponzi scheme is a financial fraud scheme that a lot of people get into, and a lot of it has to do with them wanting to make quick money and them wanting other people to accept them as someone who is smart. Oh, I know finances. Oh, they're showing me the secret. And that really they're appealing to that insecure nature of you, and they're trying to get you to be like them so they can take your money. I remember reading one time in New York back in the 1800s when the Vanderbilts and all of them were big time new money. There was a real battle in the city about, what is elegant, what is cultured. And there was this guy I remember reading about who he became the guy. He was really nobody, but he was the one everybody wanted to come to their events. He was the one who said, oh, the food was good here, it wasn't good here. And what he said could make or break your reputation. So basically, all these rich families who had way more money than this guy gave up control to this guy. Why? Because they were dependent upon him. They were dependent upon what he thought of them, and they were manipulated by him in everything they did. You don't want to be that way. So you don't want to give up that control. So you got to look at yourself. What am I doing for that external validation where I'm giving up power to someone else? The last thing we want to talk about is how insecurity affects our choices. When you're going after that external validation and you're insecure in who you are, it's going to affect what choices you make. And what happens is we see this in people's lives who are always trying to prove themselves. And a lot of times we see it in movies and TV shows. The main character is going to prove to everybody back home that he was great. He's going to prove it to everyone. And a lot of times they kind of push everybody aside. They break off relationships because they're always trying to prove themselves. And a lot of times movies make it look like that's the answer, that they get that approval and life is all better. But sometimes they show the reality. You may get that approval, but you've burnt all your bridges on the way. You may get that approval, but you're by yourself. And that's what you want to look at. What is it costing me? What choices am I making based on insecurity, based on that external validation that I feel like I need from somebody? We see this today with influencers. You have influencers who are telling you, oh, do this, do that. And what happens is a lot of times they're conflicting messages. So this person says, eat this. This person says, don't eat this. Well, you got to, okay, who do I listen to? And if you look at it over the last 40 years, nutrition has even been like that. Oh, fat is bad. Oh, cholesterol is bad. Oh, sugar's bad. Oh, carbs are bad. And you see people going back and forth on all these, and they're really just kind of fads and trends. And what you want to do is kind of get past that. You want to make sure that you're not making choices based upon your own insecurity. You're not making choices so other people like you. You really want to know, what do I think? Have I done my research, or am I just letting this person control me? Because when you're insecure, your choices often are not your own. When you're seeking that external validation, you'll a lot of times do anything to receive it. You'll betray people, you'll betray yourself, you'll do things you shouldn't do or didn't want to do because you want that outside validation. So your own insecurity is affecting your choices, and it's going to hurt you. All right, closing out the show, we want to remember that what we have to do as men is develop that inner life. We want to develop who we are as men, or we'll always be controlled by that outside force. We'll always be controlled by that need for external validation. We'll be chasing shadows in our life, and we won't really know, who am I as a man? What am I supposed to do? What kind of direction should I go in? And the reason we want to do that is the reality that contentment is only found within. You're not going to find contentment from something that's external. You're going to continue to chase shadows. You'll never catch them. You'll never find them. But true contentment is what you find within. So I would challenge you today, ask yourself that question: what am I really living for? Who am I really living for? What is the purpose of my life? Those are big questions, I know, but you want to ask yourself those to double check. Am I living for that outward validation? Am I letting others control me in everything I do? And I believe if you come to the right answer, you'll begin to grow, and you'll begin to find out, who am I as a man? What am I supposed to do? And if you need some help from that, we want you to check out thrivingman.com. That's our website where we have all kinds of tools and things to help you as a man to develop who you are. We want you to develop spiritually, mentally, physically, emotionally. Those are the 4 Ds of every man, the 4 things that really set up the foundation of how to thrive in life. So check it out. We want to help you grow. We'll see you in the next show.